Time wrote a piece basically admitting that the Democrats, liberal groups, big money, social media companies, and big business conspired in a conspiracy, their words, not mine, their words, to manipulate the 2020 election. This Red State piece addresses this. Like, why did they do this? Everybody's got a lot of questions on. Like, I thought addressing election conspiracies was a big no-go. So when Time writes a piece about an actual conspiracy, all of a sudden nobody seems to care about conservatives. Here's the piece in Red State by the famous Bonci. I don't know who that is, but they always have like names, nom de plumes up at Red State. Time claims a secret cabal manipulated the 2020 election to stop Trump. And people have questions. You think? There are two things in the timepiece, not some bastion of right-wing values, by the way, Time magazine. This is a left-leaning, far left-leaning rag. They admit two things in the timepiece that any normal person would be like, wait, what? They admit to manipulating social media and pushing to change election laws to benefit the Democrats. God forbid, and that is not using the Lord's name in vain, this was a Republican, that would be, Hades would break loose. So, from the Red State piece, quote, Time wrote a very interesting piece making some very alarming claims. Namely, that a secret cabal banded together across the country to stop Donald Trump from winning re-election. This included everything from manipulating media coverage to getting election laws changed, at least according to Time's account. Folks, this is not my account. It's not Dan Bongino's opinion. Time wrote it in the piece. Two things, so we keep this conversation on track. They admit to manipulating social media to manipulate the coverage of the news coverage of the 2020 election. And second, that they push to change election laws that would favor the Democrats. Again, this would be an enormous scandal of generational proportions in the media if a Republican admitted to this. Why am I covering this right now after the United States attorney story? Because it proves my point again, to ignore the media hacks. They are not serious people. They are activist propaganda, Soviet Union style Pravda goons. Just ignore them. You will never win a debate with them. They have no standards at all. What happens under Democrats, election manipulation and manipulation of a media coverage, is celebrated as, I'll get to this in a second, strategic brilliance. But when Republicans, and you see companies like, that when Donald Trump was using Facebook to go out and get votes, it was a huge scandal. But when Obama did it, it was strategic brilliance. The second screenshot from this Red State piece about the Time now admitting the left had a conspiracy to mess with the 2020 election, admitting it, their article, their words. Red State, no matter, the secret cabal isn't made up of imaginary Russians, so it's all good. The left truly only care about election interference and manipulation when they deem it a threat to their own preferred outcomes. Otherwise, they are all for it. You won't see the mainstream media decry this. You won't see a tearful lament from Nancy Pelosi about the dangers it poses to our republic. Rather, this will all be ignored. Heck, it'll be celebrated as a brilliant political strategy. Bingo Bonci. Donald Trump pays for some Facebook ads and some analytics in the 2016 election to win the election. Oh, you can't have that. You can't have that. God forbid. That was social media manipulation. We need to get these social media companies under control. Remember that? Remember that debate? You know what was weird? I remember when I was running for office, I ran in Maryland Congressional District 6 for Congress. It's a rather large district. It encompasses western mountain Maryland and the more suburban Montgomery County portions of the state. It's an enormous district. To ride from end to end is about a 4-hour drive, depending on what kind of traffic you hit. So one night I was coming back from Allegheny, or maybe Garrett County, which is way, way in the mountain Maryland. And I was really getting tired, and I used to listen sometimes to C-SPAN on the radio. because we couldn't afford, remember that Sirius XM back then where you can listen to Fox or something. So I used to turn on C-SPAN. And I will never forget listening to, I think it was Jim Messina, if I'm correct, who was one of Obama's strategic guys, right? One of his campaign guys. And it was Messina on C-SPAN, folks, I'm not kidding, bragging about how Facebook gave them access to this treasure trove of back-end information in a dashboard that they then used to get people through their Facebook accounts, to get their friends in the Facebook account to vote. I remember it like it was yesterday. It's still out there. I forget the name of the project they had, but it was 10 times as intrusive as what the Trump campaign worked with Facebook to do to get votes in the 2016 election. But amazingly, Facebook and others, and even Rhino Republicans with no guts, fell for this and were like, oh my gosh, this is a big scandal. Donald Trump used Facebook to get votes. Really? Because Messina and the Obama administration did it times a factor of 22,000 to do the same thing. But weird how it's only a scandal when Republicans do it and when Democrats do it. It was celebrated. They were on C-SPAN bragging about it.
There you go.
I remember it, Joe, like it was yesterday, because you know why I remember it too? I don't remember it for the reasons you may think in my audience. I remember because I was running or thinking about running again at the time. I remember exactly when I heard this, but I was probably involved in my election in Congressional District 6 at the time. And I remember thinking to myself, gosh, how do we get that dashboard access? Oh my gosh, Dan, you wanted to use Facebook to leverage it to win an election? Yeah, exactly like Obama did. Why? You'd be stupid not to. That's why I remember that. Because at the time, folks, I remember thinking to myself, wow, that is pretty clever. Facebook allows access to the dashboard? Why can't Republicans do that too? I remember it like it was yesterday, thinking, gosh, these Democrats, they really nailed us on that. And then when Trump did in 2016, to a lesser degree, because they didn't allow that back-end access anymore, but they did allow some data mining on there. When Trump did it, it was a huge scandal. What a scam. So what's the solution to this? The Democrats now admitting they did it. Well, why did they admit it? Why is Time Magazine now admitting to a secret cabal that manipulated the 2020 election for the Democrats? I told you why last week. I just want to quickly get to it again because there is a solution for this. First, they're doing it because they know the information's going to get out. So this is their opportunity now to get ahead of it and reframe it exactly as I said to you before. And as Banshee suggested in that second screenshot from the Red State piece, that they're going to reframe the debate now before it gets out and leads to an argument about, oh my gosh, there was a conspiracy to manipulate the 2020 election. They're going to reframe it in advance, which is what the media will do for them, as Banshee's right, strategic brilliance. And the media will all take their talking points, only discuss this not as election manipulation, discuss it as strategic brilliance. That'll be their talking points going forward. Bank on it, take it to the bank, cash that check. What's the solution to this? What I told you before, ignore media narratives and plow straight ahead with two things. Number one, this election, most of you think I'm getting a lot of these emails, and folks, I have to tell you, they're getting increasingly disturbing, and I'm getting very worried about some of the folks in my audience giving up here. I can't emphasize to you in strong enough terms how important it is that we continue this fight going forward, no matter how insurmountable the odds are. You don't ever forget, tattoo it on your brain, that line, that quote I repeatedly say on this show, that an enemy is not vanquished until he considers himself so. If you consider yourself defeated and you act defeated, you are in fact defeated. Why you would want to be defeated, I don't know. But I keep getting these emails from a small minority of viewers and listeners, but it's enough that it's starting to disturb me. These I'm done emails. There is no done. There's no done. Do not embrace quitting as this form of strategy. I don't understand. That's not a strategy. There are ways to fight back against this conspiracy and cabal of big business types, Democrats, social media companies, and others. Number one, get swing states to fortify election laws. Some of you, with a wink and a nod, see what I did there. Because when the Democrats were quizzed about this Time magazine piece about the conspiracy to shut down social media traffic that hurt the Democrats and changing election laws that would benefit Democrats, basically a conspiracy to mess with the 2020 election. When some of the Democrats were confronted on that, they said, no, it wasn't a conspiracy to manipulate the election. It was a conspiracy to, quote, fortify the election. Notice the OrwellianDictionary.com shift in language there? So we can fortify elections too, right? Why not? We can fortify elections by going to swing states because remember, the presidential election, if New York doesn't want to have any election laws whatsoever and wants to elect people through elections that have no free and fair component to them at all, and there's no voter file integrity or anything like that, then let New York do its thing. But national elections are decided by probably less than 10 states. If we can get enough Republicans elected in those states, some of those states we have enough Republicans elected now, like Florida, we need to change election laws to fortify elections ourselves. Voter ID, signature verification, driver's licenses for absentee voting. These are all things we can do to fortify elections too. Why are we giving up? Why? We're giving up because why? Because it's easier to give up? I don't do easy. I'm sorry. I'm not interested in easy. I'm interested in right. So that'd combat the second component of what they did in that Time magazine article. They admit to changing election laws to benefit Democrats, to take away the fairness in elections, to benefit their own guys. But second, they admit to manipulating social media. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to grow our own social media and information ecosystem. I've said it over and over again. I'm involved in it now. Parler, Rumble, there's others out there too, doing the same thing. We have to fortify our own information ecosystem.